Are you ready to branch out, to take a leap of faith, to love yourself and others fully? Then let go of whatever no longer serves you to take action now on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Erica will energize and excite you to power up your passionate dream that sets your soul on fire. With Erica's E3 approach, equipping, empowering, and enlightening yourself so you can be yourself for yourself. Get ready and get rooted to live a life without regrets, without what ifs, without should haves, and especially without empty feelings from a life unexplored. This hit show helps you build powerful and intentional roots to live it up, love it up, and let it go. Get fearlessly ready and powerfully rooted in your yes with your host, Erica Gifford Mills, and be fearless about your more and stand in your yes. Now on Get Rooted Radio.
Welcome, everyone. I am Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio, living it up, loving it up, letting it go, right here on Transformation Talk Radio. A big shout out, as always, to our producer, Malia. Malia, hey, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well, Erica.
So how was your weekend?
It was pretty eventful. I had a little birthday party, celebrating my birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
So maybe some last minute changes or plans that maybe you didn't expect?
My dad actually surprised me with a new camera, which was pretty awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I had the camera before and it got stolen, so he surprised me with a brand new one. Yep.
Well, see, and that is, it's a change, right? Little things that happen in our life, they're changes, whether it's expected, unforeseen, or maybe they're good, maybe they're bad, but it really is, changes are constant. Nothing in life is constant but change. And it is a true journey in our life that shapes us. And I think we can all relate to how things have changed and continue to change through 2020 and 2021, and I'm sure into 2022. We are being called to evolve through the layers and move forward, or stay stuck in those same experiences over and over. And it's not always easy, whether it's chosen or imposed upon us. It's just important to remember that significant change always brings opportunity if we are open to seeing it. And those are the amazing words that we are going to talk about today with my guest, Elaine Bailey Anderson, along with some powerful strategies to help you begin again. So let me tell you a bit about Elaine before we jump right in. She's a coach, a mentor, a consultant, and developer of people. As a professional leadership development consultant, she created and designed programs in leadership, coaching, and behavioral skills, delivering her training to Fortune 500 companies and small businesses around the world, working with thousands of executive managers and leaders. After founding and running a successful international coaching and development business, Elaine left the UK to move to the US, where she stepped into the role of lead coach at the rapidly growing entrepreneurial coaching company UpLevel U. Today, Elaine is a founder and CEO of Coach Brilliant LLC, a coaching academy that serves professional coaches, therapists, and service-based business owners, offering training and certifications, as well as business marketing strategy. She is truly a leader in her field, and I am so happy that she is here joining me today on this episode. So I'd like to welcome Elaine to the show.
Hey, well, thank you, Erica. I really appreciate being here. It's great to be here.
And we are glad to have you here in the U.S. We need a little more international and culture brought in. And I think that's why I'm happy to have the varying perspectives that I've had on the show over the past couple of years, because not everybody, and somebody asked me, why do you have other coaches on your show? Like, isn't that like stealing business away? And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's just like going to a personal trainer. One personal trainer isn't going to fit everybody's type, their fitness levels or their personalities. And it's so good because I really am about equipping, empowering, and enlightening people to see there's so many options out there. And change is that, right?
Absolutely.
We have that. And I think that's why I want to just kick it off right away and ask the question, why isn't it easy just to adapt? change and evolve in our lives when there's change present?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question, because fundamentally we're all human beings and we're full of thoughts, feelings, emotions, and that can unconsciously then drive our behavior, how we show up, what we do, what we say, how we act, and it can literally get in our own way. We often get in our own way, and many of us just stay stuck as a result of it. And it's at an unconscious level a lot of the time. Is we form all these beliefs, and we create habits and patterns around that we don't realize we're doing. So we get stuck, and it's like, here I am again, here I am again. And when something like change happens, whether it's chosen or imposed, and we'll probably come on to that in a minute, we have limiting beliefs and patterns that just get us caught up in our unconsciousness. And it's those habitual loops of thinking, feeling, and behaving that we don't always see that there's another way, or or we believe our stories. I mean, I don't know whether you have, I'm sure you have voices in your head, Erica, as much as I do. I think we may have talked about them before, but we believe them to be real. And those stories, if we hold on to those stories and patterns, then, we end up telling ourselves that that's the truth, and it's not really the truth of who we are. So change can be scary. And I think that's why it's not easy.
And it's that unknown, right?
Absolutely.
Your mind wants an answer. So it's going to go to the worst case scenario, because it rather have a worst case scenario that maybe I can somehow control. Absolutely. As opposed to, I have no clue what's going to happen. And I think that is, and I know you help your coaching clients with shifts and transformational changes in their lives. And you truly are a master of revealing the next version of yourself in your own life. But why can change be hard sometimes, besides the unknown? Why is it so hard?
And again, another great question. I think, change isn't always easy. Whether we choose to do something new, or whether it's forced upon us, whether it's big or small, like you mentioned already. I believe that we're being called to adapt and rise to a higher level of being. So I'm sure that you can, and all your listeners can think of times in their life where you've had to start something new, or a change has been forced upon you, and you've had to begin again, if you like. It could be relationships, it could be jobs, career change, moving house, moving to a new location, on all of what I've just said in one go. That's happened to me at one time when everything changed. And we don't have to think too far back for an example of it being imposed upon us. Just like you said, Erica, at the beginning there, I mean, 2020 was a significant year for all of us. And I know that most of my coaching clients were touched by change in some way, some in big ways, some in smaller ways. So the pandemic forced many of us to make decisions that we otherwise wouldn't have made, and called us to think, feel, and act differently than before. And I can go into that with my own experience, if that's helpful to you as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, you moved from the UK to the US. I mean, that's culture shock. That's major uplifting your whole life. And give us examples, like how did the challenges and what did you face, and how were you able to overcome them?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a chosen thing, but even chosen, as I say, brings challenges. In 2013, I made the decision to leave the country of my birth, which is England, to move to the USA. I left behind all the familiarity of everything in my homeland that I'd known, where I'd worked, what I'd done all of my life. And I sold my car, my house, I gave away everything except what I could fit into 4 suitcases and a laptop bag. And the reason that was the amount that I ended up with was that's what I could physically carry through the airport. So on my own. So I boarded the plane, headed for Charlotte, USA, international airport. It was a huge leap of faith, and I was determined to make it on my own. And I mean, the challenges, you asked me about the challenges, but nothing actually prepares you for the number of new challenges that come across when you're deciding to move and uproot your whole life 4,000 plus miles across the ocean. It requires a whole different investment of energy. You literally have to rethink everything. I mean, including crossing the road. I mean, all my life I'd learned how to cross the road, and traffic would come, traffic's on the left. Here in the US, it's on the right. So I'd actually look the wrong way and step out. My friends used to drag me back to begin with. It's amazing I survived my first 6 months. But I mean, that was just an example of it. But everything was an adventure at first. After all, I was living my dream. I was the intrepid explorer, braving the new world. But what I didn't realize was that all the systems that I'd grown up with, all the things that had supported me, were now irrelevant in my new home. And it always used to make me laugh that US Homeland Security Immigration called me a legal alien when I arrived. And I thought, what? That is the weirdest term. And moving your home 4,000 miles across the ocean is a bit like landing on another planet. I've totally started to relate to this. Some days I did feel like an alien, like I'd arrived on a new planet. I felt lost and adrift. I mean, I had a 0 positive credit score here, which was really good because it was positive, but nothing carried across from my, I had to start again. I really did have to begin again with everything. I had to give American Express $1,000 in cash so I could have $1,000 limit, and all those little things, you take for granted, like your social security card and things like this. It was all new. So the enormity of what I'd previously taken for granted really started to hit me as I navigated those daily challenges, adapting to that new life. And I did at times feel vulnerable and bare. It was like I was beginning again. I knew though, I started to realize that I had to let go of everything like this that was making me feel lost and adrift if I wanted to survive and create that next positive version of myself.
And I think that's what's important for people to realize are those things that it taught you, is that you said you had to let go, right? You had
absolutely.
You took some things for granted, which you didn't do it intentionally. It's just,
no.
This is how it always was, right? And
right.
It's even in the business world when people say, well, that's how I've always done it. So that's how we do it. But without asking the question, well, why? Why did we do it that way?
That's right.
Was it ingrained in me? Was it something important to me? Is it a value that I hold? Or is it just because, I don't know, that's how I taught? I mean, you think about when you feed your kids food for the first time, what brand do you buy? Well, do I buy that brand because that's what I was taught to buy, right? Or how does you work? And I think it's learning what it taught you. And you said you had to let go of your identity and in your ego, so that you can move forward and come to that next best part of yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny. You bring all your egos, all your identities with you, and they aren't who you are. It's what's funny is one of my friends told me it was like the move was like being a plant transplanted from one pot to another pot, and it's like you go into plant shock, root shock, because you've got to create those new connections. You've got to create that new, that new life in the soil, if you like, as wanting that. And you've got to let go of everything that holds you back, because you have to then go inwards to reveal these, to move forward. So right. It was a lot more energy was involved. It was fun too, don't get me wrong, but it was that you just had to, my mental energy was exhausted a lot because I had to rethink things a lot.
Absolutely.
So it was interesting.
So we're going to go and we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the why is change scary. Excellent. But before we go, Elaine, tell listeners how they can reach you.
Yeah, you can reach me on email at info@coachbrilliant.com. So info at the word coach, the word brilliant.com. That's the easiest way to get me. You can get me on my website, coachbrilliant.com too. That's where you can reach out. You can also reach me at on LinkedIn, which is Elaine J. Bailey, and Coach Brilliant again on Facebook.
Wonderful. So you are listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. If you missed any portion of today's episode, you can catch it on getrootedradio.com. That's getrootedradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe online to receive the latest news, events, specials, and words of encouragement. Go to getrootedradio.com. I'd like to welcome back my guest, Elaine Bailey Anderson. Thanks for being with us today.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
So we've been talking about change, but more specifically, beginning again and how to reveal the next version of yourself. And what I wanted to get into this time, because I think it's one of the underlying issues that we all have when we're looking at change, is why is change scary? So why is change scary for people that you've dealt with, right? In your experience,
Yeah.
what is holding them back?
I think, when we begin anything new, we're often stepping into the unknown. So we have no experience of this new thing. And we can feel unsure, uncertain. I mean, sometimes we can feel a little excited by it too, but also we can feel, scared by it. So we all want three things. It's certainly in when I'm talking to my clients and maybe they're starting a new business or they're working on their coaching practice. They want certainty. They want confidence, and they want to know that they can't get it wrong. It's a bit like reading the end of the book before you've actually read the book. It's going to the end and making sure that everything turns out okay. So it's, not knowing the outcome can be extremely scary for people. And I think that's what scares us, because we kind of get to that door, we open the door and it's unknown. And we can talk a little bit more about the unknown soon too, in a moment or two, if you like. But with the fear of the unknown is the thing that really trips people up often. That's what I find. A lot of my clients, it's that fear of the unknown. It's a bit like the Charles Dickens story, Christmas Carol, if you've ever read that, or you've seen the movies of it, or many versions of it. You come up against past versions of yourself. So this brings up everything unlike what you're trying to create. Your past self got you to this point, but what you've done before and how you've behaved, it may have served you well in the past, it may not. It really depends on the situation. But you have to stretch beyond these if you want to become, or you want to reveal the next version of yourself. Because to get to that level, you've got to stretch to that level. And in other words, again, just a bit like we were talking before the break, is that you have to let go of everything that holds you back, really, or anything that holds you back. And I found the more you know yourself, the deeper you can grow, and the deeper you can go through those layers to reveal the truth of who you are. And that is the key. As often we're looking for external solutions instead of beginning with ourselves. And I think that's how we trip ourselves up a bit with that too.
Yeah, it's like knowing you have to love yourself first, because
Absolutely.
if you don't love yourself, how do you show others how you need to be loved? Right. And how do you love somebody else? So I think it's getting over that. I recently told somebody, do you talk to your friends or your spouse or your children the way you talk to yourself? And she's like, excuse me? And I'm like, because you are beating yourself up, and is that how you talk to yourself more than anybody else? Right. And if you can't let go of that past, let go of things, even if they worked, just because they worked before doesn't mean they'll work again, or just because it didn't work before doesn't mean it won't work again, right? You have to be willing to open yourself up to those change and accept that you might not know, you might make a mistake, and it happens.
It does. And it's, sometimes it's the fear of not knowing that's very strong with change. That is the key thing. And if you think about it for a moment, it's not actually the fear of not knowing that we're frightened of. It's our imagination of that fear.
Yes.
And it's our imagination can play havoc with us. It really can. When we allow our imagination to take over, we can cause more damage to ourselves or others with things that we think we know, rather than the reality of what we really know in this moment. So, it could be a fear. I had a client recently who she just got very recently laid off her work, her job. And so her fear was the lost income. So therefore, because she'd lost her income, she thinks she's going to lose a house. So her imagination goes wild with that forthcoming demise, that self-fulfilling prophecy of it could be becoming a bag lady on the street and not having a home over her head. So, or a roof overhead, should I say. But what we imagine to be true is fueled by those stories in our heads, and we believe them to be real. And we can get consumed with worry and anxiety about what might happen in the future. We get locked into believing these thoughts, and the impact of these thoughts actually it impact really our reality, the truth. So the thing to know about the unknown is that's just what it is. It's unknown. And if it's possible to be looser with that and just say, I just don't know right now, that can start to help. I know me just saying that to you is going to, when you're in your pattern and in your head, it's not going to help just in that sentence. But if you're constantly running away from the unknown rather than accepting it, then this is the perfect way to make yourself afraid.
Oh, absolutely. And it's
Yeah.
when you think about it, when you put a magnifying glass over something, it gets larger and it grows.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
it's that fuel that you were talking about. If you're adding fuel to the fire, and in this case, it's the fear.
Yeah.
It's just going to grow. It's going to get bigger and it's going to get bigger. And yes, it's easier said than done. And I'm not saying that being positive cures everything, but positivity does help, right? Instead of what could go wrong, what could go right?
Yeah.
And that could, that can help you start making those small steps. But let's tell listeners, how do you deal with the fear of the unknown? What are some strategies that
to help
stop that?
Absolutely. I mean, fear isn't going to go away, and it's an emotion. It's an energy, if you like, and it's part of being human. I mean, fear will help us. In the caveman days, hopefully, most of us don't have flight or fight that is life-threatening these days, hopefully. But in those days, it was the difference between keeping us alive or not. But our bodies or our minds cannot tell the difference between what's real and what's perceived in terms of danger. And then when we get locked up in our heads, how we think affects how we feel, that affects our action, affects our results, then we get locked up into that fear, as we've talked about. So the best way I've learned to deal with fear, and how I teach my clients and their coaching clients because I coach coaches to face it, is not to run from it. It's to deal with it. It's to face it. Because if you keep running from it, as you said, then you become more afraid. You believe those negative stories in your head, and it's kind of like sediment at the bottom of a pond. It starts to layer deeper and deeper and deeper in your conditioning. And you're doing this often at a subconscious level. But fear actually thrives in your imagination. So how to do it? If you can stop right there, because fear needs you to resist it and run from it, for it to give it any power whatsoever. So that's the first thing, is to start to notice that fear is there. And know it's an energy. No, it's not the truth of who you are. Take a breath, breathe. I know that's always good for everybody, but your breath changes when you're in fear. So, reconnect to your breath. Use some breathing techniques. We haven't got time to go into them today, but there's lots of different, belly breathing. There's box breathing. Yeah, just to help you to take a few breaths and get reconnected to your body, get reconnected to your center, and accept what is unknown right now. I just don't know. I lost my job yesterday. I just don't know what I'm going to do right now. And it's okay not to know. Meet the situation, face the fear rather than run from it is my suggestion. And if you experience that fear, you experience the energy of fear, be with the feeling and fully experience it in your body, then fear will actually have nothing to sustain it. It'll actually begin to dissolve away. And the more you do this, the less intimidating fear will be. And you might have to do it a few times, but it's a great way of starting to notice it, recognize it's a natural emotion where it's never going to go away. I love Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic book is one of my favorite books on creativity. And in there, she talks about when she's doing anything creative, fear always shows up. So it comes on the road trip. It comes on the trip. There's her creativity and fear. And fear is not allowed to touch the controls. It's not allowed to change the radio. It's not allowed to change the temperature. It's not allowed to give directions or to give advice. It can sit there because it always has been, and it comes along, and recognize that me and creativity have got it from here. So I love that story because I think it's very true. And what I often do is if something gets very scary for me, I write a letter to fear when things get scary, and then I burn it ultimately. So I write a letter, I say, I hear you, I know you're here, I know you want to be with me, I know this is scary, but I've got it from here. And I'm releasing the energy of this never to be returned, and then I'll burn it to actually release my attachment to it. And my clients do that sometimes too, and it's just a great way to let that energy go, because fear isn't the truth. It's not the enemy. It has a bad rap. It's a natural reaction, but fear can show us the way back to the truth if you allow yourself to experience being with it. So our fears are only as powerful as you allow them to be. Seriously.
And I think that is a perfect spot to stop for this segment. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss peeling back the layers to reveal your true self. But before we go, Elaine, tell listeners how they can learn more about you.
Yeah, you can learn more about me from my website, which is coachbrilliant.com. It's all one word, coach and brilliant.com. Brilliant because English women always say brilliant. You can email me if you want to know any more about anything, or you'd love to book a momentum call, have a chat with me. I'm more than happy to do that, a complimentary call at that's INFO, at coachbrilliant.com. And you can reach me on Facebook as well at coachbrilliant.com. Coach Brilliant. If you just type in Coach Brilliant, it will come up. And you can get me at LinkedIn as Elaine J. Bailey. It's just a short. It's been there longer than I've been married.
Thank you so much. I'm Erica Gifford Mills, and you are listening to Get Rooted Radio. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Don't forget to visit getrootedradio.com to listen to a replay of this episode or any archived episode. Sign up for helpful tips and learn more about upcoming events. That's getrootedradio.com. Welcome back to my guest, Elaine.
Hey.
Thanks for being with us again today.
Oh, it's so much fun. It's passing so quick. I can't believe it. I've got so much to say.
So we're talking about peeling back the layers to reveal your true self. And that's part of that beginning again that the episode's all about. So how do you help your clients to peel back the layers to reveal that next version of themselves?
Well, one of the biggest and most profound things that I've ever found in my own life, but also I see it and I practice it in my own coaching business, is helping people know themselves well, because knowing yourself well is hugely important if you want to lead a successful life. And I use that term very generally, however you define success, however you want that to be. You might change that word to happy life, joyful life, whatever. But knowing yourself well is actually how you go deep and you peel back those layers to reveal the next version of yourself. We mentioned already about patterns and conditioning. There's so much of those things that we do automatically and unconsciously. And that brings us back around to here I am again. And that's where we stay stuck. So at a high level, it's how you show up in the world, your predisposition towards things. It's how you react. It's your triggers, what triggers you, what annoys you, what irritates you. And if you don't understand yourself, then how do you expect others to understand you? It makes a huge difference to your relationships, personal relationships, intimate relationships, professional relationships, how we interact. If you don't understand yourself, this makes it really hard. I like to say that we judge other people by their actions, what they do, what they say, how they act. We judge ourselves by our intentions. So, but the challenge is that when we're judging other people, we don't know what their intentions are. And if there's a mismatch, there might be a mismatch in my actions and my intentions. Therefore, you are your actions, you are the word you use. And we wonder how, it causes conflict and all those kind of challenges. It wonders how, it can get us in the way of change, when we're trying to change things and move forward. So knowing yourself well means truly understanding yourself. And if you do understand yourself well and you learn about yourself, it's a lifelong journey, it really is. But you're less likely to react. You're more likely to have better relationships, less conflict, less misunderstandings. You're going to have more mental energy. I was working with somebody just yesterday who's in a better place. She understands herself much better now. So she's positioning herself for an interview for jobs. So hopefully she's going to be more successful in that side of things as well. And it's understanding our personality, because we all have different worldviews, so there's slightly different nuances on that angle, and therefore how we show up and the patterns we have are different too. And I'm just scratching the surface today.
No, and I think those are really good points. Because I remember a client I had that I always said, no, we want to make sure that we're being honest with ourselves, that we're not lying to ourselves. And she's like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh, I lie to myself and say I'm not a procrastinator. I'm a huge procrastinator. And it's funny is because I get upset if other people procrastinate, or I always told my son, I'm on you about being a procrastinator because it's one of my most horrible faults. Like I know I do it, and I avoid doing something, and then I do it, and I'm like, why was I avoid doing that? It was like, it took me 5 minutes, but it took me a week to do. I mean, it's on my other room.
We can actually overplay it too. We
Yes.
end up overplaying it, trying to protect the other person, but it might not be the other person's personality or their window on the world. So it's interesting.
Right. So not lying to yourself is part of knowing yourself, knowing those faults, knowing your strengths. And I think when people say, I hate it when somebody at a job interview says, what are your weaknesses? Well, it's because you need to acknowledge where you're weak at something. Is that something that another teammate that maybe can teach you, or a colleague, or training that you need? But if we don't identify those weaknesses, that means we don't know ourselves and we're not willing to grow where it could be necessary.
Absolutely. And there's a tenderness and a vulnerability to that, and that's and Erica, I know you know as fellow coaches, we understand that, and there's celebration in that, because you have to be willing to go there. You have to be willing to be a little, tender with it. But the thing about patterns and habits are they're not the truth of who you are. Just because this is something that's you've brought with you from your childhood, or it's something that it has worked in the past but it doesn't work now, it's not the truth of who you are. And by going deeper and revealing those layers, that brings up the truth of who you are, and helps you to be able to see it for what it is, get a little bit curious. You can even have humor with it, and see this is not really who you are. I had a client who used to call her inner critic Bitchy Brenda. And when she used to show up, she said, Bitchy Brenda was here again today. But what she was able to do was separate herself from the actual pattern, notice the pattern, and actually create a gap between. And we'll probably get on to talk about that a little bit soon too.
And I was going to ask you, I mean, that is, you mentioned about getting in your own way, right? Whether it's unconsciously or subconsciously or intentionally, right?
Right.
What are some examples on how people get in their own way?
Yeah, I mean, I think this brings me really into handling those negative stories and patterns in our heads, because we don't question them, we just unconsciously follow them, down that neural highway. It's already nice, it's like a big indentation, it's like a rut in the road in a field, so if you're driving your Land Rover in the same field everybody else has, you're going to go in the same ruts, but that's it's so well formed. When we become locked down, locked in fear, and able to see ourselves beyond our negative stories, our ego jumps in to protect ourselves. It's just a protective mechanism. When we're in fear like this, we're operating from those unconscious patterns. The voices in our head feel real. We cling onto the past. So therefore, it's normal for us to have these negative words and so on. And, fear grips us, and it's not the truth. So, I was talking just a moment ago about a client I was working with this week who's who's just recently lost her full-time job. She was wanting to set up her own coaching business anyway, which is why I'm now working with her. But it came without warning. She was numb. You know, she went into reaction mode and her ego took over. So the self-fulfilling prophecies, you know, of imminent doom were there. You know, she couldn't see a way forward. And mind was in overdrive. I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. She's a mental type on the Enneagram. She's in the mental triad, the thinking triad. So she's a 6 on the Enneagram. So she's trying to figure it out. So her brain is overloaded with stress and tension, and it feels like the end of it. And you know, absolutely everything. That's the end of my life. So the situation for her was a lost job. You know, so therefore, as I said, I mentioned very briefly, this is a tool. This is something that I call the pattern revealer tool. But how you think affects how you feel, which ultimately affects the sensations that you have somatically in your body. So we're talking about the 3 centers of intelligence: the head, the heart, the gut. And then it influences how you behave. So the action that you take or don't take, and then ultimately the result that you get. And that result that you get, because you're in that unconscious loop, that unconscious pattern, it reinforces the original thought. So the next time you come back to the same thinking, you're already there. You're already that self-fulfilling prophecy of doom is already reinforced, and it reinforces your original negative thought. So it keeps going. You keep getting the same result. Here I am again. You know, I'm locked in this unconscious pattern. So that's a very recent example, if that helps. But we don't question them. We just react, and our patterns are in the shadow. You know, they're hidden from view. We don't know they're there. I call it a closed loop or a system. And I think I mentioned already, you know, it creates layers of personal bias that form and get thicker and thicker. It's like that sediment at the bottom of the pond. We get constricted and tightened up in our head, our heart, and our bodies. And we have to break that pattern. We have to, by noticing that pattern, we can find a way through to actually create a pattern interrupt, break that pattern, so that we can get out of that self-fulfilling prophecy of doom and start to create a different choice of approach. And the key to that is really conscious awareness, helping yourself get back into conscious awareness, self-awareness.
Now you have, so people sometimes don't know these patterns, and in order to reveal it, now you have something called the pattern revealer tool, right?
Yeah.
And I know you want listeners to be able to do this. So tell them how they can get this tool.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a mini training that I created for my coaches, because I coach coaches. So I am helping them, but primarily I get them to use this tool on themselves, because you know, even coaches have patterns and stories, don't we, Erica?
Oh yes, we do.
And here it is again. So this helps you to unravel your inner story. It helps you to let go of drama that hooks and shapes your daily life. It helps you to see the patterns clearly without judgment and create new positive ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. And it's a great journaling exercise. And it's called, it's called the Pattern Revealer Tool. Do you want me to give the URL for that? Or is that some, the URL? If you go to coachbrilliant.com/pattern revealer / and then you will be, it's a complimentary training. You can have a look at that. You can think about the situation. Where am I right now? Think and talk through the story. Ask yourself some questions around each of the thinking, the feeling, the sensations, and you can actually see the pattern for what it is, and then start to look for ways to interrupt that pattern. And if you want any help with that at all, jump on a complimentary call with me, one of my momentum calls, which are offered on my website as well, and I'd be happy to talk it through with you. But it's a great tool to use on yourself to help you out of those drama and hooks, and you start to see things for what they really are, just patterns and not the truth.
And I think that's really good for people to if they don't know what those patterns are. So again, that's free mini training for the pattern revealer tool is the coachbrilliant.com /pattern revealer. And then you should be able to get it all right there. Because of that, like you said, it will help them to see the patterns clearly without the judgment and create those new positive ways of thinking, feeling, and acting.
And it's tapping into the 3 centers of intelligence. So it's, you
Yes.
know when you get triggery, you know when you get angsty, you might not be able to articulate it, but you know you get tight, you get constricted. So
Yep.
it might be the thinking, and then you can look at the feeling, what sensations you're having. You might not have any, and that might be an area where there's a gap for you. It might be the actual physical sensations, like a gut punch. This lady that lost her job said it was like somebody sticking a knife into her gut and twisting it round. She actually felt the sensations of that because she was so scared.
And that is, I mean, it is. When my son, he was a biter. He hates when I say, tell people this, but he was a biter. He would feel the emotion and couldn't get his words out. And I'd always tell him, before you react, blow out the mad. And it was just a form of breathing and meditation, right?
Excellent.
Breathe out the mad and then react. Because by then,
right,
now you can get the words together. You're not going to go bite somebody. And it worked. And yeah. he laughs. He's like, I remember. You'd be like, blow out the mad. And it is. It's that time where we know. I mean, I know it when I'm like, oh, I can't even. It's coming. I need to just walk away, and we all have those moments.
We do. It's part of being human. It
right.
really is.
So I know you had mentioned that, that new beginnings there are hidden in all endings.
Yes.
And what is one way that we can get out of our own way to move forward? How do you help your clients to step forward, whether it's, our coaches, non-coaches? How do you help your clients get out of their own way?
Yeah, and the best way that that I've found and the way that my clients have found is through that conscious awareness, learning about yourself. I mean, the tool that I use, I am so grateful for learning the Enneagram, and
yes,
the Enneagram acts as an operating system in the background of my coaching practice. I think I'd be lost. I can't imagine coaching without it, because it really brings to the awareness of all these different, how we limit ourselves, how we get in the way, how we get wrapped up in our own self-protection. And then it's about relaxing through self-awareness and openness, and asking yourself the question, what's it like being on the receiving end of me, and thinking about what's that like? Do I need to be afraid?
And I was laughing. I'm sorry that I was laughing.
No, go for it.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, I'm sure people think like, oh, you got to deal with me again. Like sometimes I have thoughts like on that, is that, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And no wonder people aren't being nice to me. I'm not pleasant to be around right now. So it's funny that you say that, because sometimes hindsight is 2020, and
it is.
It's
so and your intentions, but your intentions might be different. Your intentions might be sound. I would say 99% of people, and it's not an exact science, but don't set out at the beginning of the day to go and annoy people or to upset them or pee them off, or however you want to describe it. But our intentions, we hold on to our intentions, but there's that mismatch between actions and intentions. Yes. And also people receive things in different ways, and that's understanding the 9 types of the Enneagram. I use the power of the Enneagram to help me become the observer in my life. That's what I've done over and over again, and my clients as well, to help them understand and see how they're getting in their own way. Our thoughts do lie to us. It's like you were saying earlier on about procrastination. We can make conscious and better choices. So I practice what I teach using the Enneagram to reveal the patterns and lighten rather than tightened attention and constriction. And I did that for myself. I've done it. I've worked with it with my clients. So really what you do is accept the situation, surrender to what's happened, let go of what was, be open and curious, add a bit of humor in there, because it's not the truth of who you are, and create an expansive space to start over or to begin again. And the Enneagram is much more than a personality tool. The intention of the Enneagram is you're not just a number. You may know your number already, but most people know their number and then don't do much else with it. But it invites you into meaningful growth through self-knowledge and awareness. And that number is a starting place. We all get locked up in those unconscious patterns and stories, especially when something triggers us and we react. And it's our ego's way of protecting us. Often we don't even know we're doing it. We just get peed off with somebody. but it limits our choices and leads us often to a negative outcome. So for me, the Enneagram's a really highly accurate roadmap that guides us back to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. And it's a tool for awakening us to the truth of who we are. So it's one of the best ways to actually, I've found, and I've done all the different types of personality tools in my professional career and trained them all. But this is the best one that helps people get back and centered, gets them out of their own addictive patterns and staying stuck, and helps them to really move forward in liberation and be a better version of themselves. So it's deepening your understanding with conscious awareness. You will recognize your innate strengths, because there's good things too. The blind spots and the assumptions, you break free from those limitations, empowering you to make better personal, professional choices, have better relationships, and live your best life. So it goes back. Phenomenal.
Yeah. And I mean, it goes back to the very first thing that we started this episode about, is knowing yourself, understanding yourself, being authentic, and, not misleading yourself to think that maybe you don't have faults or weaknesses, because we all do. I mean, we're human. That's how we're made. But this helps to get you to where you need to or want to be, right? That you want to be that, if you want to be something different, right? If you're trying to grow and expand, whether it's personally, professionally, whatever that might be, knowing where am I at, right? How do I walk into a space? How do I walk into the world? How am I perceived? Or because that sometimes people don't understand that, they don't see that, and I don't think it's in many cases intentional. It's just they don't know where to begin. And this the Enneagram is a great thing. And now you have a coaching program that's the Enneagram and the Coach program.
I do, yeah. I teach. I mean, one of the things I teach very much to coaches is I teach the Enneagram and the Coach is a 10-week program. It's for therapists, leaders, service-based business owners, coaches, anybody who helps others grow and expand. So it teaches you how to use the knowledge and wisdom of the Enneagram in your coaching work or in your interactions, into relationships with your clients. Firstly, by deepening your own self-knowledge through recognizing and understanding your own Enneatype, your own innate blind spots, your own strengths, your own assumptions, your own unconscious patterns, because you can only coach somebody or help somebody to the extent that you know yourself. And that's where coaches often fall short. We hang on to these, we learn all the good stuff, the processes and so on, but we don't then take it to that next level. So learning about yourself deeply first, then with the experience of that as your foundation, you'll learn how to use the Enneagram with your clients, deepening their own self-understanding, their conscious awareness, and breaking them free from any limitations that they have, and empowering them to make better choices, get powerful results in their lives as well. So yes, I do have, my program is called Enneagram and the Coach. There's a program, there is a certification option as well with it. If you want to know about that, if you want to become certified in that, then email me at info@coachbrilliant.com. And it is actually on my website. So if you go into coachbrilliant.com and you go into trainings and programs, and you'll see Enneagram and the Coach there. If it's something that you're interested in and you want to jump on a call and have a chat with me about it, see if it's a good fit for you, happy to do that. Also, especially for your show, Erica, as well, I want to give a special pricing for that. So there's a coupon code. If you type in Enneagram 2021, so that's Enneagram 2021, you'll get 10% off the program pricing. So
lucky listeners.
Remember to type it in when you're checking out if that's something that you want to do. But if you prefer to have a chat with me about it and see if it's a good fit, I'm more than happy. Just reach out to me at info@coachbrilliant.com, and I'm happy to do that.
Wonderful. Now, before we wrap things up, because we only have about a minute left, tell what is one key takeaway that our listeners can really begin again with?
Yeah, I think that it's one of the key things about beginning again is about that the deeper that you know yourself, the deeper that you grow, and you keep growing, you keep learning, and knowing that you are not fixed, that you're not limited, and understanding that you are free to make those choices. There's a lot of change going on in the world right now. This may be your time to peel back the layers and reveal the next positive version of yourself, and you can absolutely do that. And you are not fixed. You can be and grow however you want to be. Just take those steps forward.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great pleasure as always. And thank you all for tuning in, and have an amazing day. And I'm looking forward to the next time on Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills. Living it up, loving it up, letting it go. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Get Rooted Radio with Erica Gifford Mills, living it up, loving it up, and letting it go. Visit GetRootedRadio.com if you have missed any part of this hit show, and tune in on TransformationTalkRadio.com to live fearlessly in your more and powerfully rooted in your unlimited yes. For more information and to work with Erica directly, visit GetRootedRadio.com. That's GetRootedRadio.com, and get ready to live it up, love it up, and let it go.